Separating the facts from the fiction and the Baba Mises from the bottom line. Good morning and welcome to the Sunday Schmooze with the Rabbi and the CEO. Mitch Zachary is the CEO of Zachary Financial Consultants from I'm Rabbi David Vigler from Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens, where you'll find traditional Jewish values for contemporary Jews just like you. Good morning, Mitch. How you doing?
Surviving, thank God.
I think we're all just sort of hanging in there.
Well, you know what it is, Rabbi? Personally, and maybe all our listeners feel this way, I feel like we're waiting for the next shoe to drop. I think that there's so much unknown here that it's not like watching a hurricane where you watch it come and go. We don't know when the eye of this hurricane is going to cross over us.
I think it's extraordinary realization, Mitch, that we who live in 2020, we are the most sophisticated, advanced generation in the history of the world. Yet, we have an enemy right now that's invisible. We've got an enemy that we can't even see, and we don't even know how to fight this enemy. Who would have thought that the doorknob has become public enemy number one? We're all talking now about electric doors and to send the faucet the direction of the dinosaur, right? Because everything's going to become electric and automated and nobody needs to touch.
Rabbi, when was the last time you could remember shaking hands with somebody?
You know, I shook hands with my baby the other day, and I was saying to myself, this feels interesting. I was like, wow, someone else's hand, human touch. It just felt different, you know. It was interesting. Shaking someone's hand. I'm not sure if that's coming back too soon, even after this containment.
So. Yeah, I think handshaking is gone.
I think we're all going to become germophobic. Who knows where this is going?
Oh, definitely.
Very, very interesting times. But Mitch, you know, I thought that it's so interesting that the enemy that we're all struggling with, I think the president is talking about this as a war, is one that is invisible. When you look at someone that seemingly is healthy but could be very sick on the inside, and you look at a shiny doorknob and it looks, you can't tell that it's got dangerous COVID-19 on it, it makes me think about how we Jews behave at our holiest moments. We exercise our holiest moments with our eyes closed. Think about it. When we say Shema, the most powerful prayer of our people, we do it with our hands covering over our eyes. And when we light the Shabbat candles, it's always with the women covering over their eyes. At a wedding ceremony, the holiest day of your life, we veil the bride. And when we say Yizkor memorial services, when we remember our loved ones, it's typically with our eyes closed. When you kiss your children, when you bless your children, often we do that with our eyes closed. And even when we bless the congregation on the holy days, through the priestly blessing, the Kohanim have their heads covered by the talis. Why do you think that is? Why would we be covering our eyes at our holiest moments?
Well, I think part of it is so you just focus on the prayer.
Okay, so it's added focus. So definitely the reason that we cover our eyes during Shema is so that you don't get distracted.
Right.
But I think that there's something deeper than that. A message we can extract here from the coronavirus. And that message, Mitch, I think is that the most beautiful things in this world are seen not by the eye, but by the heart. The most powerful things in this world are not visible to the human eye. They can only be felt by the heart, and that's why when you're listening intently to something, you'll find that you'll close your eyes sometimes. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Not because you're falling asleep.
Absolutely.
But you'll close your eyes because you're trying to focus, because your eyes are actually distracting you from capturing the beauty and the power of the message being conveyed. Look at what's happening with coronavirus. What weapons of mass destruction couldn't do to our economy is being brought about by something which you can't even see. That which is invisible is so incredibly powerful. It's so much more powerful. And that's why I say, Mitch, is that when we experience holy moments as Jewish people, we close our eyes because the moment is so powerful. We're experiencing something which is not, it's too powerful for the human eye to experience. And with that perception, I think that we can realize, if nothing else, that there's more than meets the eye to everything that's going on around us. You can't just have a one-dimensional vision. You've got to be able to have a deeper perception of reality, to realize that more than what you can see is what you cannot see. There's the hand of God, which is happening here in the wings. Can you relate? Can you feel that, Mitch? Can you see any divine intervention going on with this virus?
Well, when you go under the assumption that everything happens for a reason and everything's part of God's plans, then you have to believe that God's hand is behind it. Not behind it, but guiding it for some purposeful reason.
Right, and that's really where I'm coming from, because as a Jew, as a believer in God, and as an American, this country is certainly very proud of our faith. As a believer that God is almighty and the master of all events, we know that more than what we can see, which is the actual pandemic, there's the hand of God here, which is, coordinating events. There are things that are going on over here that we cannot see, and it brings me back into the first time that God made this happen. Because what's happening right now feels like deja vu. Think about the fact that this Passover, you probably don't have any Seder plans. What are your plans? You staying home?
They seem to have all been canceled.
Yeah, like nobody even knows what's going to be tomorrow, never mind 2 weeks from now or 10 days from now.
It's just going to be my immediate family.
So, when you look at the first Seder in the history of the Jewish people, it happened under very similar circumstances. We were all stuck at home. The verse tells us in the Torah, "V'atem al teitzu," and you shall not leave. Ish mi petach beito, each man from the entrance of his home ad boker until the morning. You were not allowed to leave your home. We were quarantined in our homes, whilst outside there's happening a plague. There's a plague going on outside. And it was God that passed over our homes. This was the connection. This is the origin of the name Passover, because during the 10th and final plague that Moses brings about on the Egyptian oppressors of the Jewish people, in the year 1313 BCE, is the death of the firstborn, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what broke Pharaoh, because Pharaoh, by the way, was the firstborn, and that's what caused Pharaoh to let the Jewish people go. So here we are, we're quarantined at our home. The death of the firstborn is going on outside, and God is passing over the Jewish homes. How does He know what the Jewish homes are? Do you remember?
Of course, the lamb's blood on.
Because we were eating the Paschal sacrifice, the Passover lamb, inside of the homes, and the blood of the Passover lamb we spread on the doorpost. That's how God identified the Jewish homes. So to me, Mitch, there's more going on here than meets the eye. On the outside we see coronavirus, we see cable news networks, we see doctors, CDC, that Dr. Fauci, whatever, from the White House. We see all sorts of interesting vigilante journalists, citizen journalists that are reporting all sorts of vital pieces of information that they heard from a friend, who heard from a friend, who heard from a very credible source. And there's all this chaos going on. But beyond that, Mitch, there's something more than meets the eye. There's something biblical about what's happening here. And that's what I want to share with you here, is that just like in Egypt, when we were getting ready to leave Egypt, God has us paint our doors with the blood of the Paschal sacrifice. That obviously connects to the mezuzah, You know, we Jews are very into our doorposts. You know, we take our doorposts very, very seriously. I love watching, you know, when you see in movies, you see, there's always a random mezuzah in the background. Have you ever noticed, you ever look out for
I
the
may not be
mezuzah?
watching the same movies you're watching.
Mezuzah watching. Yeah, but I'm not even talking about Jewish films, or like, I don't even know, like maybe commercials. I don't know what I've seen this in. But like randomly you'll see a mezuzah like in the background. You're like, oh, that's cool. You know, so we're very much into our mezuzahs, and then what's the mezuzah? The message of the mezuzah is you're literally putting your faith on the doorpost. You're taking a scroll, which is a piece of the Torah. It's actually the first paragraph of the Shema. It's our declaration of our faith. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. One God is our monotheistic declaration. We're putting it on our doorposts, and that serves as a protection, just like the blood in the doorpost in Egypt protected us from the plague that raged on outside. And how amazing, how providential is it that all this is happening now just days before Passover? It's so interesting. There's more here than meets the eye, and I feel that when you look at the mezuzah, there's a message here connected to coronavirus. Just like the first time the plague happened before the first Pesach, the mezuzah's got a message here. Right?
Okay, all right, well, you know what, I love that thought. Let's go with it for a minute, Rabbi. So, during the Exodus from Egypt, the doorpost, the angel of death was going by. So let's say the coronavirus is like the angel of death. Okay, so
Okay.
you can get the coronavirus and not die, as the case is with 98% of the people, but you can get the coronavirus and die. Are there any reasons you could think of, or is there any benefit as to why God would be doing it this way? Now, I know obviously many times we've discussed how it's not up to the chess pieces to tell the chess master
How to play the game.
How to play, we just do what the chess master tells us to do. But is there can you think of any historical, biblical reasons or similar situations where besides Passover, where God said, okay, felt like there was a need for this? Now, I know there are stories during the Exodus where God wiped out a lot of people for reasons. So there's Korah and for other reasons. Do you think this could be part of?
I think that
a
the
similar
history,
situation?
you know, the one thing we learn from history is that history repeats itself, and that as a Jewish people we find that every time we descend into a situation of self-reliance and indifference and apathy to God, then God throws us a curveball to get our attention. This is the history of the Jewish people. When you read through the book of the prophets, through the Torah, when you read through Jewish history, anytime we descended into a situation where we didn't need God, then God proved to us that we didn't need Him. I mean, there's nothing new about this. This is 4,000, 5,000 years old since the beginning of time. So I think what's happening here, Mitch, is that God is forcing us to realize that there's more than meets the eye. You've got to look beneath the surface. You know, here we are, we think that we live such wonderful lives because we have social media, we have technology, we have fancy cars and flourishing businesses and a thriving economy. But God is telling us that just like the coronavirus came from under our noses, so too, we've got to be able to find the presence of God that is all around us, just hiding in plain sight. That's what I think is the message here. It's a lot like the mezuzah on the door. You know, a lot of people think that the mezuzah is the piece that you see that's on the door. Right? There's this joke about this.
Oh, I remember when I was in Israel, you could buy the mezuzah, but it's extra if you want the parchment inside.
Right, the parchment is, people don't realize that the parchment is so important. You know, there's a good joke about a wealthy couple. They built a mansion, you know, with 30 bedrooms. And one day they told the contractor to put the mezuzahs on all the doors. So they explained to him that you have to take this little box and you put it at an angle on the right side, leaning inwards. And they showed him on every door, put it on. Okay. They go out, they come back a few days later, and they see a note on the kitchen table. The contractor says, I put up all the mezuzahs for you, and I left all the warranties on the kitchen table right here. Now the warranties, what he thought were the warranties, were effectively the scrolls that go inside the mezuzah. The mezuzah itself is the scroll. The case is just a case. It's just the wrapping. You can make the mezuzah case out of whatever you want. I must have said this 1,000 times, and people just don't understand. The mezuzah is the parchment. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. The case could be made out of gold, diamond, silver, plastic, straw, paper. You can do whatever you want to cover the mezuzah scroll. But the scroll itself, the parchment, that is the mezuzah, right? So I was thinking about it the other day, and I realized that, the message of the mezuzah is to look inside, to look beneath the surface, not to be short-sighted, but to be able to see into the distance, to see what lies buried beneath the surface. That's what the mezuzah is telling us. There's a case, but underneath the case is a parchment. There's something hiding on the inside. And I think that's what the message, one of the messages is here of the coronavirus, is for us to be able to realize that more than meets the eye, more than the chaos and the panic and the anarchy and the fear, there is Almighty God, the master of the universe, who lies beneath all world events. And he coordinates everything that's going on, and it's about time that we notice his presence. And I think that's one of the messages that the coronavirus is sending us, is that God is saying, hey, I think you've forgotten about me. It's time that you woke up and remembered me. Because just like now everybody's talking about the invisible virus, we're starting to realize that there's so much more that we can't see than there is that we can see. Right? And I got to share with you a quick story from the Talmud. The Talmud in Tractate Baba Kama tells us that when there is a plague in the city, you should quarantine.
Really?
You should quarantine. Get into your house, get away from the plague. And there's a whole discussion there in the Talmud about what exactly are you supposed to do? So if it's a situation where the disease is spread everywhere, and you don't have a way to quarantine, then it's not going to help you. But the commentaries say that in the case of cholera, in the case of cholera, even if the illness is everywhere, still, it's a good idea for you to get out of town. Why is
Not
that?
just quarantine, but get out of town.
But to get away, yeah. To separate, social distancing. Mm-hmm. Get away from people. Why is that, even if the disease is everywhere? What's that going to help? The reason is because more damaging than the illness itself is the fear of the illness. And the commentaries continue explaining a story of a sage or a holy man who once lived at a time of a plague. And he met the angel in charge of the plague. Can you imagine you bumping into the angel, like the angel of death, What would you ask the angel of death if you bumped into him? I don't know.
Stay away.
So he asked him, he said, tell me, how many clients are you taking today? And the angel of death, in charge of the plague, he said, 5,000. Horrible news, okay. At the end of the day, they noticed that not 5, but 15,000 people had died. So this holy man comes back to the angel in charge of the plague, and he says to him, you lied to me. You said 5,000, you took 15,000. What's going on? To which the angel replied, 5,000 as promised. The other 10,000, they died machmas hapachad v'habe'oso. In Hebrew, they died because of the fear and the fright. Why? Why would you die from fear and fright? You see, it's our faith that strengthens us. When we realize that the blessing and the curse comes from God, the master of the universe, who is the divine coordinator of all events, when we recognize the presence of God and we pledge allegiance to God, then God sends his protection upon us. But if you're exhibiting fear, fear is the antithesis of faith. You are rejecting the providence, the governance of God. And that's why the angel said, They died because they abandoned God's divine providence, God's blessing, by being afraid.
I love that thought. Very inspirational. Now, if you could just please share with us, Rabbi, what's going through your life right now? Are you suffering from fear, anxiety, or just suffering because the closeness could kill anybody?
Closeness to who?
To your family.
God forbid. I love the closeness to my family. Oh my God, I love being so close with my family. My kids are all home, all 8 of them, thank God. And their schools were very quick. I have to say, within 24 hours of quarantine announcement from the school, all classes were online. Everything. Whether it was virtual...
oh, great. So most of your kids are...
They all have regiments. Every single one of my kids.
Wonderful.
The problem is try to keep a 4-year-old glued to a screen for 3 hours. That's not easy. You know, this one needs a tissue, this one needs a pencil, this one needs a scratch, this one needs a glass of water. That's where, you know, you don't need to go to the gym anymore. But I have to tell you, Mitch, you asked me a personal question. How am I dealing with the fear and anxiety? I'll give you a personal answer. For me, anxiety is the antithesis of faith. Fear is not even an option. Now, I am a human being, and I definitely react to external stimuli like anybody else. But to me, my divine service is very heavily involved in repelling any shred of anxiety, making sure that anxiety is darkness and trust in God is light. That just like light banishes darkness, my trust in God, my blind trust in God, my unconditional faith, unwavering faith in God, will allow for zero anxiety, not even 1% of anxiety. That is my aspiration. It's not where I am, but that's certainly what I'm working towards, to reach a state of zero anxiety, which is what our sages tell us is the greatest conduit for blessing. When we can exhibit trust in God that is blind, then God reciprocates by giving us blessings that are blind. Just like we trust in God without calculating if God can solve this problem blindly, so too God blesses us blindly without calculating if we deserve the blessing or not.
Rabbi, that is a wonderful thought. Thank you for sharing that. And I know that many people, many of our listeners, if not all, are going to be affected financially. And that has to concern everybody. And let's be honest, Rabbi, you personally, the shul, is going to suffer financially. Just unfortunate. As people have less money, they'll make less donations.
I don't want to affirm that for spiritual reasons. So I want to say, chas v'shalom, God forbid, that's for spiritual
let's
reasons.
Say God forbid, but let's say it's possible. Yet, despite that, you are going to fight the anxiety and the fear, and I want to thank you for that, because that's what everybody needs to hear. It's like FDR said.
Nothing to fear,
but fear itself.
But fear itself.
And I thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you, Mitch. This is something which I want to encourage each and every one of our listeners. Don't be afraid. Not because you're not afraid, but because you're connected to something deeper. Because when you look beneath the surface, you'll find the virus. But when you look beneath the virus, you'll find God. Keep on looking deeper. Dig, and dig even deeper. You'll find the virus, but behind the virus, you'll find the hand of God. And God loves each and every one of us unconditionally. Let's not offend God. Let's show Him that we don't only believe in Him, we trust in Him, we love Him, we embrace Him, and we accept Him. And with that attitude of zero anxiety and full trust, God will bless us beyond our wildest dreams and aspirations. May we all be healthy and wealthy and strong.
Amen.
And we'll see you right after this. Don't go away.